What happened? Tech executive Vera Chen spent 12 years building revolutionary AI algorithms in her home workshop, carefully protecting her intellectual property with an obscure clause in her original contract. When new CEO Marcus Sterling fired her and tried to steal her patents, he had no idea he was about to face the legal fight of his life. The moment Marcus Sterling strutted into our Monday morning all-hands meeting, I knew Nexus Dynamics was about to get gutted by a man who'd never written a line of code in his life. He wore his arrogance like a $3,000 suit, perfectly tailored and completely transparent. "Welcome to the new paradigm," he announced, clicking his laser pointer like it was a magic wand. "We're cutting inefficiencies, streamlining operations, and pivoting toward disruptive innovation." Translation: firing people, stealing credit, and burning down everything we'd built. I sipped my lukewarm Dunkin' coffee and studied him like I was examining a bug under a microscope. No surprise, no anger, just that bone-deep recognition you get when you spot a predator in your territory. This wasn't my first rodeo with some venture capital golden boy trying to strip mine a company for parts. But Marcus didn't smell like just another corporate cleanup artist. He reeked of something worse, desperation masked by cologne and the kind of hungry ambition that devours everything in its path. "Oh, and by the way," he added with a casual wave, "all legacy IP and research archives are being consolidated under new management protocols. Ownership optimization, you understand." He didn't look at me when he said it. Didn't need to. We both knew he was talking about my life's work, the machine learning algorithms I'd been perfecting since 2012, the neural network architectures that powered half our product line, the breakthrough pattern recognition systems I'd coded during countless midnight sessions in my garage. What Marcus didn't know, what their legal team clearly hadn't bothered to investigate, was sitting in a manila folder in my home office filing cabinet, tucked behind a jar of expired breath mints and a stack of old tax returns. Paragraph 5 of my original 2012 employment agreement. 7 beautiful lines that would soon make Marcus Sterling wish he'd stayed in whatever corporate graveyard he'd crawled out of. I didn't flinch. I smiled. The kind of smile you give a mouse that just walked into your carefully baited trap. By Tuesday morning, the bloodbath was in full swing. Marcus called it organizational evolution, corporate speak for feeding careers to a spreadsheet algorithm. The entire machine learning division, 15 brilliant engineers including my protégé Sarah, who still carried her laptop in a Hello Kitty bag, vanished overnight. No farewell speeches. No transition meetings. Just empty desks and the lingering smell of betrayal in the break room. Marcus held court in the main lobby afterward, preening like a peacock who'd just discovered mirrors. "This is the difficult work of transformation," he proclaimed to the shell-shocked survivors. "Sometimes you have to amputate diseased limbs to save the body." My phone buzzed before the last fired engineer had even cleared security. Subject line: urgent CEO meeting, 2:30 p.m. No context, no HR representative copied, no witness protection program. I didn't need a crystal ball to see where this was heading. I walked into Marcus's corner office with the same expression I use when scraping gum off my shoe. He was sprawled in his Herman Miller throne like Caesar reviewing gladiators, gesturing to the chair across from him like we were about to discuss weekend golf plans. "Vera, thanks for coming up," he said with practiced sincerity. "I'll cut to the chase. Your position as VP of Advanced Systems is being eliminated." Not fired. Eliminated. Like I was a line item in a budget report. "We're restructuring our innovation pipeline," he continued, sliding a thick document packet across his mahogany desk. "Vertical integration, you understand. Streamlined decision-making hierarchies." I flipped through the severance papers, my face neutral as Switzerland. Then I saw it, buried on page 3 under Section J, "Employee hereby assigns all intellectual property rights, including but not limited to current, pending and adjacent innovations developed during or proximate to employment tenure." Proximate to employment tenure. I've negotiated hundreds of contracts. That phrase isn't standard boilerplate, it's a legal fishing net designed to scoop up anything that might have slipped through the cracks. My algorithms. My architectures. My midnight breakthroughs. The work I'd been protecting for 12 years. I looked up at Marcus and gave him my most grateful smile. "This is very generous. I'll need to review everything carefully." His grin widened like a shark scenting blood. "Of course, take your time. But we'd prefer to finalize this quickly. Clean breaks are better for everyone." As I stood to leave, he added, "No hard feelings, Vera. You've been part of our story. We just need fresh characters now. I paused at the door without turning around. Don't worry, Marcus. I'm still writing. That evening, I sat cross-legged on my kitchen floor next to my filing cabinet, a glass of wine in one hand and my future in the other. The 2012 employment agreement looked exactly like I remembered: faded ink, coffee stain on the corner, and paragraph 5 nestled between the confidentiality clause and vacation policy like a sleeper agent waiting for activation. The employee shall retain exclusive ownership of any intellectual property, inventions, or innovations developed outside standard business hours, off company premises, without use of company equipment or resources, and without direct company assignment or supervision. Beautiful in its simplicity. Bulletproof in its clarity. I photographed the document and texted it to my lawyer, Elena Rodriguez. She's 4'11", allergic to small talk, and once made a Fortune 500 CEO weep during a deposition by reading his own emails back to him in chronological order. Game time. I typed. Her response came back in 30 seconds. Let's burn this place down. Legally. I powered up my encrypted external drive, the one I hadn't accessed since the Obama administration, and entered a password longer than most corporate mission statements. The screen bloomed with 12 years of meticulously documented innovation, time-stamped code repositories, video logs of breakthrough moments, receipts for every component I'd ever purchased, even grocery store receipts with algorithm sketches on the back. Every neural network architecture Marcus thought he was stealing had been born in my garage at 2 a.m., powered by my electricity, coded on my personal MacBook Pro, and documented with the obsessive precision of someone who knew this day would eventually come. I hadn't built Nexus Dynamics' AI empire. I'd only been leasing them the blueprints. Marcus Sterling thought he'd fired a middle manager. What he'd actually done was pick a legal street fight with the architect of his entire technology stack. And I don't lose street fights. They scheduled my exit interview in conference room B, the one with flickering fluorescent lights and a dying ficus that looked like it wanted to file its own wrongful termination lawsuit. HR sent Janet, the kind of person who speaks to you like you're a confused substitute teacher and she's the only adult in the building. Hi Vera, she chirped, sliding a glossy folder across the table. I know this transition isn't easy, but let's get through it together, okay? Inside, termination checklist, Cobra forms, a discount code for some career coaching website I wouldn't touch with Marcus's login credentials, and a signature block highlighted in nuclear yellow with one phrase: complete transfer of all intellectual property rights, past, present, and future. They'd actually highlighted it. Like a roadmap to their own legal destruction. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make Janet fidget. Then I gave her my most innocent smile, the kind dear use right before stepping into traffic. Wow, I said softly. This IP language is pretty comprehensive. Is this new? Janet's smile flickered. She was expecting tears, maybe a grateful handshake for the opportunity to work with such visionary leaders. Instead, she got curiosity. Oh no, it's completely standard, she backpedaled. Just legal housekeeping. Dotting I's and crossing T's. Really best to sign today if you want to avoid any delays with your severance. I'll need my attorney to review this, I said, tilting my head like I was scared of my own boldness. Marcus materialized in the doorway like a bad omen in a tailored suit. Everything progressing smoothly? He asked, not bothering to sit down. Just being thorough, I replied sweetly. He chuckled, the sound a wolf makes before eating grandmother. Smart to be careful, but it's pretty boilerplate stuff. The sooner we wrap this up, the smoother your transition. No need to get lawyers involved over standard paperwork. I smiled like a woman who was absolutely about to involve lawyers. Of course. I just want to make sure I understand everything completely. After he left, Janet handed me her business card with the desperation of someone trying to plug a dam with chewing gum. We'll follow up tomorrow then? Absolutely, I said, standing. I just need one night to process everything. What I needed was already waiting in my car, Elena's preliminary response letter, printed on letterhead that had made more than one corporate executive reconsider their life choices. Elena's office looked like a law library had exploded in the best possible way. Legal briefs stacked like sedimentary layers, case law books marked with more sticky notes than a college textbook, and 3 computer monitors displaying what looked like the legal equivalent of battle plans. She was reading my original employment agreement like it was scripture, occasionally making notes with a fountain pen that probably cost more than Marcus's watch. "This is poetry," she murmured without looking up. "Paragraph 5 is cleaner than a surgical incision. No ambiguity, no wiggle room, no corporate escape hatches." "They never updated the template," I said. 12 years of new hires, and they just kept using the same language. Elena finally looked up, her eyes gleaming behind designer glasses. "Do they know about this clause? If legal reviewed it, they didn't flag it. They're trying to backfill ownership with the severance agreement." She pulled out a fresh legal pad and started sketching our strategy. "Here's what we do. Acknowledge receipt of their documents. Express intent to review. Then we file a preemptive intellectual property protection claim based on paragraph 5. How loud do we make this?" "We whisper," Elena said with a predatory smile. "Loud threats are for amateurs. We're going to speak so softly they'll have to strain to hear us, and every word will terrify them." She handed me a draft response letter, 3 paragraphs of polite, professional language that read like a velvet-wrapped hand grenade. "This goes to HR first thing tomorrow. Cordial acknowledgement, request for review time, and a gentle mention that you're consulting with legal counsel regarding certain contractual provisions." I scanned the letter. No direct threats? Better. Implications. We're not telling them there's a bomb in the building. We're just asking them to explain why they hear ticking. Elena leaned back in her chair. "They'll probably try to pressure you into signing quickly once they realize what's happening." "Good," I said. "Coercion strengthens our position." She closed my file and tapped it once, like sealing a coffin. "Vera, when we walk into that meeting tomorrow, remember, the power was always yours. We're just helping them see it." The conference room felt different this time. Colder. The kind of atmospheric pressure that precedes a Category 5 hurricane. Marcus sat at the head of the table in a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, flanked by Janet from HR and 2 lawyers who looked like they'd been summoned from whatever corporate law firm handles sensitive situations. Elena entered like she owned the building, carrying a leather briefcase that seemed to hum with contained legal energy. She set it down with the kind of precision that makes expensive watches jealous, pulled out a manila folder, and placed it squarely in the center of the table. Marcus cleared his throat. "Vera, thank you for coming in. I understand you had some questions about the severance documentation." "Actually," Elena said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never lost an argument in her life, "we have some clarifications to provide." She opened the folder and slid a document across the table to Marcus. The header read, "Notice of Intellectual Property Rights Assertion under Original Employment Agreement." Marcus frowned, his confidence dimming like a phone with a dying battery. "What exactly is this?" "Paragraph 5 of Ms. Chen's 2012 employment agreement," Elena replied with surgical precision. "The intellectual property carve-out clause that remains in full effect." One of Marcus's lawyers, a thin man who looked like he survived on energy drinks and billable hours, leaned forward. "I'm sorry, what clause?" Elena smiled like a chess master revealing checkmate. "The provision stating that any intellectual property developed off-hours, off-site, without company resources, belongs exclusively to the employee. Never amended. Still binding." The room went silent except for the sound of Marcus's world cracking along fault lines he never knew existed. "That's..." He started, then stopped. His lawyer was frantically flipping through papers, sweat beading on his forehead like morning dew on a tombstone. "We've prepared comprehensive documentation," Elena continued, producing a thick binder. "Time logs, device records, purchase receipts, third-party verification, blockchain timestamps, and video evidence of independent development. Ms. Chen's neural network architectures, machine learning algorithms, and pattern recognition systems were created entirely on her own time, with her own resources, on her own property." Marcus's face had gone the color of hospital walls. You can't be serious." "Deadly serious," Elena said. "In fact, we're prepared to file a federal intellectual property theft claim if Nexus Dynamics continues to use Ms. Chen's innovations without proper licensing agreements." The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Finally, Marcus found his voice. "What do you want?" Elena and I exchanged a look. Game, set, match. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new corner office, bigger than Marcus's old one, with a view of the harbor and a coffee mug that read Chief Technology Officer in elegant gold lettering. The final settlement had been educational. Nexus Dynamics agreed to purchase exclusive licensing rights to my algorithms for $12 million upfront plus 15% royalties on all products using my technology. They also offered me the CTO position at triple my previous salary, with a board seat and complete autonomy over the AI division. Marcus Sterling had been quietly transitioned to new opportunities, corporate speak for fired so fast his head spun. Last I heard, he was selling blockchain consulting services to cryptocurrency startups. The circle of life, I suppose. My new office door opened, and Sarah poked her head in, the brilliant engineer who'd been fired on Tuesday, now my deputy director of machine learning innovation. The new patents came through, she said, grinning. All 17 of them, filed under Chen Dynamics LLC. I spun my chair toward the window, watching seagulls dive for fish in the harbor below. You know what the best part is, Sarah? What's that? They never even read paragraph 5. 12 years of contracts, hundreds of employees, and not one person in legal bothered to update a template that was older than most of their smartphones. Sarah laughed. Their loss is our gain. I raised my coffee mug toward the harbor. To paragraph 5, I said. The little clause that could. The funny thing about corporate predators like Marcus Sterling, they're so busy looking for the big threats, the obvious competitors, the flashy disruptions, that they never notice the quiet details hiding in plain sight. They never think to check the fine print of the contracts they're trying to break. But some of us? We read everything. We document everything. We protect everything. And when the time comes to strike back, we don't roar. We whisper. And watch their empires crumble one paragraph at a time. If you enjoyed this story of corporate justice, remember that the details matter most when the stakes are highest. Sometimes the smallest clauses carry the biggest consequences.